I'm going to follow up with an unexpected question for our commentators, and it's a question that's inspired by Judith, but also inspired in her and I have to say in me by her mentor, Albert Hirschman. He's her mentor and my hero. Albert Hirschman and Judith have this wonderful way of saying, you know, this is what we hear, this is conventional wisdom, this is what everybody agrees upon. Now, let's look at it from a different perspective and see if there's any insights or if we can learn anything more. So I'm going to turn that on its head and say you've all said some wonderful things about how your careers have been influenced by Judith. You know how to ask many more questions. You know how to think about the mess in the middle and at the bottom. You know how to deconstruct organizations. You can think in multi-causal, multivariate ways about the world. You know to think about history. You know that you have to get the facts and you have to get them right. Why doesn't that just make your job more difficult?
Why doesn't that make your
why all of these things that you have explained mean that you have to work harder. You have to look more, you have to analyze more, you have to think more, you have to spend more time. You say that's been an advantage for your career, but I could say, well, it really makes your jobs more difficult to be, to follow a, what are we, a Tendler-esque approach to the programs that we do, to the organizations that we work in, to the organizations that we're trying to improve. Okay, go ahead.
The thing is that I disagree. I think it makes the job easier, right? Because at the end, I think that when you do all that, you are really working with tangible problems, with problems that you were able to measure correctly, and then you were able to design solutions as correctly as possible. Whereas if you don't do that, then you end up doing things that don't resonate with the beneficiaries that you want to benefit, and then you lose credibility. That's the experience that I've had.
I think that's an interesting question. You made me think for a minute. I think it's probably partly true for myself. I think when you take the time to do all the things you just said, I mean, it does take more time and it does raise a lot of questions. I think the key is having more time to think through the answers. And some of us work in environments that are very high pressured with delivery for fast targets and quick project design. And I think sometimes I have so many times just said, stop, why are we rushing? For those of you who work at the bank, why are we rushing to project concept note stage? Why are we rushing to the next evaluation stage? This is not quite finished. So I think I'm sort of fighting against the speed at which some of development projects are designed and take place. So I think in that sense it is difficult. I also think the skills that we learn here in a way lend themselves a little bit better to evaluation research. That it's a very nice way to think about analyzing projects, understanding projects, and looking at them with hindsight and a historical lens. It is harder to look futuristically and design projects, but I still think in the end it's a good set of skills to have.
I think for me there's also a question of just not becoming a bureaucratic cog in a wheel, right? You want to make sure that we talk about kind of this messy middle. I mean, you really want to make sure that you're producing quality results. I also think that in the context of the banks, and this is actually a sea change in the last couple of years, it's not just credibility for yourself, for your program, for your activities, for your institution, but there are also some consequences. And what often happens is when things are done in a sloppy way or when they're sped up too quickly, as Genevieve was mentioning, you have consequences that could be, you know, things like inspection panels or disgruntled members of society, and things that really do, from a time perspective, are far more costly to deal with mitigation on the back end than to design quality programs on the front end.
Yeah, I agree with my previous colloquialists. It makes your work both more challenging, more harder, and easier. Harder because I think Judith embodies a life devoted to this. You never stop. You never stop. It never ends. You know, who's prepared to live that way? On the other hand, it is empowering, as you said at the beginning. It is empowering when you're facing other people, when you are confronting other people. You feel that you own some good arguments, and you're negotiating from a strong position. So it's good and bad, and but we are happy to try and work that way.
Hard but worth it. I want to assure you I would not have asked the question if I hadn't anticipated your kinds of responses.